The people who effortlessly achieve at the highest levels know something that the rest of us are missing. It's not what you think, and it's definitely not what they teach in business schools or success seminars. Stay with me, because this changes everything. Most people believe that high achievers succeed through superior willpower, relentless hustle, or some special combination of talent and opportunity that they don't possess. They think successful thinking requires constant motivation, aggressive goal setting, and the ability to push through obstacles with pure determination. But what if I told you that the most profound achievements emerge not from force and grinding, but from understanding a simple principle that makes high performance feel natural and sustainable rather than exhausting and artificial? What I'm about to share will challenge everything you've been told about success mindset and reveal why motivation, hustle culture, and willpower-based approaches often prevent rather than promote authentic achievement. By the end of our time together, you'll understand why the people who achieve most effortlessly approach thinking and action completely differently than what conventional wisdom suggests, and why this understanding makes high achievement accessible, regardless of your background, resources, or current circumstances. There's something profound that happens when we truly understand achievement thinking, not the surface-level strategies most people attempt, but the deeper truth that changes everything. What I'm about to share might feel uncomfortable at first, then liberating, and finally transformative. Because here's what most people miss: you don't need to become someone completely different to think like a high achiever. You need to remove the mental obstacles that prevent your natural intelligence and capability from expressing themselves fully. The trap. Have you noticed how trying to think like a high achiever often feels like trying to force yourself into someone else's mental clothes that never quite fit? There's something happening beneath the surface that most of us miss because we're focused on copying successful people's habits and strategies instead of understanding the deeper thinking patterns that actually drive achievement. Picture David, a talented software engineer who had spent 3 years trying to develop an achievement mindset after reading dozens of success books and attending productivity seminars. He created elaborate goal-setting systems, morning routines copied from successful entrepreneurs, and motivation techniques designed to keep him focused on his ambitious targets. He tracked his habits, measured his progress, and pushed himself to think positively about his potential for success. But despite all his efforts to think like the high achievers he admired, David felt increasingly frustrated and disconnected from his goals. The more he tried to force himself to think ambitiously, maintain constant motivation, and push through obstacles with determination, the more exhausted and artificial his approach felt. His elaborate achievement systems felt like external impositions rather than natural expressions of his authentic drive and capability. Sound familiar? David represents millions of us caught in what I call the achievement imitation trap. We try to copy successful people's visible behaviors and thinking patterns without understanding the deeper foundation from which authentic achievement emerges. We focus on surface-level strategies and mindsets rather than cultivating the internal conditions that naturally produce high-level thinking and performance. Here's what's really happening beneath the surface. Most people approach achievement thinking like they're trying to install foreign software on incompatible hardware. They attempt to force themselves to think in ways that don't align with their authentic nature, values, or natural intelligence patterns. This creates internal conflict that actually prevents the clear thinking and effortless action that characterize genuine high achievements. David was exhausting himself trying to become someone else rather than understanding how to optimize his own unique thinking patterns for achievement. He was copying external frameworks instead of developing the internal clarity and alignment that allow high-level thinking to emerge naturally from who he actually is. What David didn't realize, what most of us miss, is that sustainable high achievement doesn't come from forcing yourself to think like someone else. It emerges from removing the obstacles that prevent your own natural intelligence and drive from functioning at their highest level. The most successful people aren't using willpower to maintain their achievement mindset. They've created internal conditions where high-level thinking feels natural and effortless. Think of how a river naturally flows toward the ocean. The water doesn't force itself to move forward or struggle to maintain direction. It simply follows the path of least resistance while staying true to its essential nature of flowing downhill. When obstacles arise, the river finds creative ways around them without losing its fundamental momentum toward its destination. Your achievement thinking wants to work the same way. When properly aligned with your authentic nature and clear about direction, high-level thinking and action emerge naturally without constant effort or motivation maintenance. The struggle and force that characterize most people's approach to achievement actually interfere with the natural intelligence that produces effortless high performance. Most people exhaust themselves trying to maintain artificial thinking patterns that require constant energy and attention. They fight against their natural rhythms, interests, and thinking styles in order to match some external template of how successful people supposedly think. This creates internal resistance that consumes mental energy and prevents the flow state where authentic achievement actually happens. The real trap isn't lack of ambition or insufficient motivation. The trap is believing that high achievement requires you to think like someone else rather than understanding how to optimize your own unique mental patterns for sustained high performance. When you learn to work with your natural intelligence rather than against it, achievement thinking becomes as effortless as breathing. You might be thinking, but successful people do have different thinking patterns than unsuccessful people. Don't I need to change how I think to achieve at higher levels? That's exactly the right question, because what I'm about to share isn't about avoiding change or accepting limitation. It's about understanding how authentic achievement thinking develops from the inside out rather than being imposed from the outside in. The people who achieve most sustainably at the highest levels understand something that changes everything about how success actually works. They know that achievement thinking isn't a foreign mindset to be adopted. It's a natural expression of human intelligence that emerges when you create optimal conditions for clarity, creativity, and sustained action. When you understand this principle, developing high achiever thinking becomes as natural as a plant growing toward light. David's story doesn't end with him trapped in artificial achievement systems, but his transformation didn't happen through finding better success strategies or more powerful motivation techniques. It happened through understanding that authentic achievement thinking emerges from alignment with his genuine nature, interests, and values, rather than from copying other people's approaches. When he stopped trying to force himself to think like someone else and started optimizing conditions for his own natural intelligence to function clearly, everything changed. The story. Let me tell you about Maria, a 38-year-old marketing manager who had always felt intimidated by the high achievers in her industry. She watched successful entrepreneurs speak at conferences with apparent effortless confidence, read about their morning routines and goal-setting systems, and wondered what mental approach allowed them to think so ambitiously and act so decisively, while she struggled with self-doubt and analysis paralysis. Maria tried adopting the thinking patterns she observed in successful people. She practiced positive visualization, set aggressive goals, and attempted to maintain the kind of unwavering confidence that seemed to characterize high achievers. She read biographies of successful women, studied their decision-making processes, and tried to model their apparent fearlessness and strategic thinking. But the more Maria tried to think like the high achiever she admired, the more artificial and unsustainable her approach felt. Their bold confidence felt like pretending when she attempted it. Their aggressive goal setting created anxiety rather than excitement. Their apparent certainty about direction conflicted with her natural tendency to consider multiple perspectives and potential outcomes before making decisions. After months of trying to force herself into achievement thinking patterns that didn't fit her authentic nature, Maria felt more confused and inadequate than ever. She began to believe that she simply wasn't built for high achievement, that successful thinking required personality traits and mental patterns she didn't naturally possess. Then, something interesting happened during a project that genuinely excited Maria. Her company was launching a campaign for a nonprofit organization whose mission aligned deeply with her personal values. Instead of trying to apply external achievement frameworks, Maria found herself naturally thinking strategically, creatively, and ambitiously about how to create maximum impact for this cause she cared about. The thinking patterns that had felt forced and artificial when she tried to copy other people's approaches emerged naturally when she was working on something that connected to her authentic interests and values. She found herself setting bold goals that felt exciting rather than intimidating, making decisions quickly because the direction felt clear, and maintaining sustained focus because the work felt inherently meaningful. Maria began paying attention to the conditions that supported her natural high-level thinking versus those that created struggle and artificial effort. She noticed that her best strategic thinking happened when she was working on projects aligned with her values, when she had enough quiet time to process information thoroughly, and when she could collaborate with people who appreciated her thoughtful analytical approach. Instead of trying to become someone else, Maria began optimizing her work and life to support the conditions where her natural intelligence functioned at its highest level. She sought out projects and roles that aligned with her authentic interests. She structured her schedule to include the reflection time her thinking style required. She stopped apologizing for her thorough analytical approach and started leveraging it as a strategic advantage. Within 18 months, Maria had been promoted twice and was leading initiatives that had significantly more impact and complexity than anything she'd previously imagined herself capable of handling. But the transformation wasn't about developing foreign thinking patterns, it was about creating conditions where her natural intelligence could express itself fully. Maria discovered that her thoughtful, values-driven approach wasn't an obstacle to high achievement, it was her unique pathway to sustainable success that felt authentic and energizing rather than forced and exhausting. Her natural tendency to consider multiple perspectives became a strategic advantage in complex problem-solving. Her need for meaningful work led her to opportunities that others overlooked because they seemed challenging or uncertain. The profound insight from Maria's story is that authentic achievement thinking doesn't require becoming someone you're not. It requires understanding how to create optimal conditions for your natural intelligence to function clearly and consistently. The thinking patterns that feel forced when you copy them from others often emerge naturally when you're working in alignment with your authentic interests, values, and natural mental rhythms. Maria learned that high achievers aren't successful because they all think the same way. They're successful because they've each discovered how to optimize their unique thinking patterns for sustained high performance. Some are bold and intuitive, others are analytical and systematic. Some think best in collaboration, others in solitude. The common factor isn't identical thinking patterns, it's alignment between their authentic nature and their approach to achievement. This story illustrates why copying other people's achievement thinking rarely works long-term. You're trying to force your natural intelligence into patterns that may be completely wrong for how your mind actually works best. True achievement thinking emerges from understanding and optimizing your own mental patterns, rather than trying to adopt someone else's approach. The truth. Here's what transforms everything about thinking like a high achiever. High-level thinking isn't a foreign mindset to be adopted. It's the natural expression of human intelligence when it's operating under optimal conditions. You don't need to acquire achievement thinking from outside yourself. You need to remove the obstacles that prevent your natural intelligence from functioning at its highest level. Most people exhaust themselves trying to copy successful people's visible thinking patterns without understanding that authentic achievement emerges from internal alignment rather than external imitation. They focus on service-level strategies and behaviors rather than creating the foundational conditions that naturally produce clear thinking, creative problem-solving, and sustained effective action. While conventional wisdom suggests that high achievement requires special mental traits or learned thinking patterns, master practitioners understand that everyone possesses natural intelligence capable of high-level performance when it's operating under the right conditions. The goal isn't acquiring new thinking abilities, it's optimizing the thinking abilities you already have. Think of how a high-performance engine works. The engine doesn't need to be completely redesigned to achieve maximum performance. It needs optimal fuel, proper maintenance, and conditions that allow its existing capabilities to function without interference. When these conditions are met, the engine naturally operates at its highest level without strain or artificial enhancement. Your thinking works similarly. You already possess sophisticated intelligence capable of strategic thinking, creative problem solving, and sustained focus. High achievement thinking emerges when you create conditions that allow this natural intelligence to function clearly and consistently, rather than trying to force your mind to operate according to external patterns that may not match your authentic thinking style. This understanding completely transforms your approach to developing achievement mindset. Instead of trying to copy other people's thinking patterns or force yourself to adopt foreign mental frameworks, you begin optimizing the conditions that support your natural intelligence. Instead of adding new thinking strategies to your mental toolkit, you remove the obstacles that prevent your existing intelligence from expressing itself fully. Here's what most people miss. The thinking patterns that characterize high achievers aren't artificially constructed mindsets. They're natural expressions of human intelligence operating under optimal conditions. Clarity, creativity, strategic thinking, and sustained focus are inherent capabilities that emerge when you create the right internal and external environment. The secret lies in understanding that your mind naturally wants to think clearly, solve problems creatively, and focus on meaningful goals. When you create conditions that support these natural tendencies rather than fighting against them, achievement thinking becomes as effortless as seeing when you open your eyes in a well-lit room. This is why forced motivation and willpower-based approaches to success thinking often fail. They're trying to override your natural mental patterns rather than optimizing them. When you work with your mind's natural intelligence instead of against it, high-level thinking becomes sustainable and enjoyable rather than exhausting and artificial. The most successful people aren't using superior willpower to maintain their achievement mindset. They've learned to create internal and external conditions where clear thinking, creative problem solving, and effective action feel natural and effortless. Their success looks easy from the outside because they're working with their natural intelligence rather than fighting against it. This means that developing achievement thinking isn't about becoming someone different, it's about becoming more fully yourself under optimal conditions. When you understand how to create these conditions consistently, high-level thinking becomes your natural way of operating rather than something you have to force or maintain through effort. The practical implication is that sustainable achievement thinking develops through environmental design and obstacle removal rather than through motivation techniques and willpower training. You optimize your schedule, relationships, physical environment, and work structure to support clear thinking. You identify and address the factors that create mental fog, emotional reactivity, or scattered attention. As you create these optimal conditions, you naturally begin thinking and acting more like the high achievers you admire, not because you're copying their patterns, but because you're allowing your own natural intelligence to function at the same level. The thinking patterns that seemed foreign when you try to force them become natural expressions of your authentic intelligence operating clearly. Natural development. Now that you understand the principle, let's explore how to create the optimal conditions for your natural intelligence to express itself as sustained high-level thinking and performance. Clarity cultivation. The foundation of authentic achievement thinking is mental clarity, the ability to think clearly about priorities, direction, and actions without being clouded by confusion, overwhelm, or conflicting mental noise. Most people try to force clarity through elaborate planning systems rather than creating conditions where clear thinking emerges naturally. Your mind naturally seeks clarity and direction, but this clarity can be obscured by information overload, conflicting commitments, unclear values, or environments that promote scattered thinking. The first step in developing achievement thinking is identifying and addressing whatever factors are creating mental fog or confusion in your current experience. Begin by examining your information diet. High achievers are typically very selective about what information they consume because they understand that mental clarity requires protecting your mind from irrelevant or distracting input. Notice what information sources enhance your thinking versus what creates mental noise or emotional reactivity. Consider your decision-making load. If you're constantly making small decisions about routine matters, your mental energy gets fragmented rather than focused on high-level thinking. Successful people often systematize routine decisions to preserve mental clarity for what matters most. Look for areas where you can reduce decision fatigue through automation, elimination, or systematization. Evaluate your physical environment's impact on mental clarity. Some environments naturally promote clear thinking while others create distraction or mental fragmentation. Notice where you think most clearly and creatively, then structure your important thinking time to happen in these optimal environments. Examine your commitments and obligations for clarity of purpose. High-level thinking requires knowing what you're trying to achieve and why it matters. Unclear or conflicting goals create mental confusion that prevents the focused thinking characteristic of high achievement. Spend time clarifying your authentic priorities and ensuring your commitments align with these priorities. Practice regular mental clearing activities that help your mind process information and return to natural clarity. This might include reflection time, physical movement, time in nature, or meditation practices that help clear mental clutter and restore your thinking to its natural sharpness and focus. As you remove obstacles to clarity and create conditions that support clear thinking, you'll notice that strategic thinking, creative problem-solving, and effective decision-making begin to feel more natural and effortless. This isn't because you've acquired new capabilities, it's because you've removed the interference that was preventing your natural intelligence from functioning clearly. Authentic alignment. The second foundation involves aligning your thinking and action with your authentic interests, values, and natural strengths rather than trying to force yourself into achievement patterns that don't match your genuine nature. High achievers aren't successful despite their authentic nature, they're successful because they've learned to leverage their authentic nature for sustained high performance. Most people try to adopt thinking patterns and success strategies that worked for others without considering whether these approaches align with their own personality, values, and natural thinking style. This creates internal conflict that actually prevents high-level performance because you're fighting against your natural intelligence rather than optimizing it. Begin by identifying your authentic interests and values rather than what you think should interest or motivate you. High achievement becomes sustainable when it's connected to what genuinely matters to you personally. Notice what topics, challenges, and goals naturally capture your attention and energy versus what feels forced or artificially imposed. Examine your natural thinking and working style rather than trying to adopt someone else's approach. Some people think best in solitude, others through collaboration. Some prefer systematic analysis, others intuitive synthesis. Some work best with detailed planning, others through adaptive improvisation. Understanding and honoring your natural style is essential for sustained high performance. Consider your authentic strengths and how they might be leveraged for achievements rather than trying to develop capabilities that don't match your natural aptitudes. High achievers typically build their success around their natural strengths rather than trying to become well-rounded in areas that don't align with their gifts. Evaluate whether your current goals and direction feel authentically yours, or whether they're based on external expectations, social pressure, or ideas about what success should look like. Achievement thinking flows most naturally when it's directed toward outcomes that genuinely matter to you rather than toward goals you think you should pursue. Practice making decisions based on authentic preference and natural energy patterns rather than on external standards or other people's approaches. Notice what choices energize you versus what depletes your energy, then gradually align your commitments and direction with what supports your natural vitality and engagement. As you develop greater alignment between your achievement efforts and your authentic nature, you'll discover that high-level thinking and sustained action begin to feel energizing rather than exhausting. This alignment creates the internal conditions where your natural intelligence can express itself as effortless achievement thinking. Strategic patience. The third foundation recognizes that sustainable achievement thinking develops gradually through consistent optimization rather than through dramatic mindset shifts or intensive motivation campaigns. This patience isn't about accepting limitation, it's about understanding that authentic high performance develops on natural timescales rather than forced ones. Most people abandon their achievement development efforts because they expect faster transformation than natural intelligence optimization can provide. They try approaches for a few weeks, don't see dramatic changes in their thinking patterns, and conclude that they're not capable of high-level achievement. But authentic achievement thinking develops through gradual refinement of conditions and practices rather than sudden personality transformation. This foundation involves trusting the process of gradual optimization while maintaining consistent attention to creating conditions that support clear thinking and effective action. Your natural intelligence develops and expresses itself more fully over time when you consistently provide the right conditions and avoid forcing artificial changes. During this development period, you might notice periods of enhanced clarity and performance alternating with times that feel more ordinary or unclear. Both phases are natural parts of the optimization process. Enhanced periods provide glimpses of your potential and information about what conditions support your best thinking. Ordinary periods allow integration and prevent the burnout that comes from trying to maintain peak performance constantly. Use this patient development time to experiment with different conditions and approaches to discover what optimally supports your natural intelligence. This might include different work schedules, environmental factors, collaboration styles, or thinking practices. The key is making gentle adjustments based on what actually enhances your thinking rather than forcing yourself to adopt predetermined systems. Also use this time to gradually address lifestyle factors that may be interfering with clear thinking. Poor sleep, inadequate nutrition, lack of physical movement, or chronic stress can all prevent your natural intelligence from functioning optimally. Addressing these foundational factors often produce more dramatic improvements in thinking quality than any strategic techniques. The beautiful aspect of strategic patience is that it allows achievement thinking to develop in a way that feels natural and sustainable rather than forced and artificial. You're not trying to become someone completely different overnight. You're gradually optimizing conditions for your existing intelligence to express itself more fully. Sustained expression. The fourth foundation involves creating systems and environments that support consistent expression of your optimized thinking rather than relying on motivation or willpower to maintain high performance. True achievement thinking becomes sustainable when it's supported by structures that make clear thinking and effective action the natural default. Most people experience occasional periods of clear thinking and high performance, but struggle to maintain these states consistently. They assume this inconsistency indicates personal failure rather than understanding that sustained high performance requires environmental and systemic support rather than constant individual effort. This foundation is about designing your life, work, and relationships to consistently support the conditions where your natural intelligence functions best. Instead of trying to maintain achievement thinking through motivation, you create circumstances where clear thinking and effective action feel natural and effortless. Begin by identifying the specific conditions that reliably support your best thinking and most effective action. This might include certain times of day, types of environments, collaboration approaches, or preparation rituals. Once you understand these patterns, you can design your schedule and commitments to maximize time spent in optimal conditions. Create systems that reduce the mental energy required for routine decisions and activities, preserving your cognitive resources for high-level thinking and strategic action. This might include meal planning, wardrobe systematization, automated bill paying, or delegating routine tasks that don't require your specific expertise. Design your physical environment to support clear thinking and focused action rather than distraction or mental fragmentation. This includes your workspace, home environment, and the places where you do your most important thinking and creative work. Develop relationships and collaborations that enhance rather than drain your mental energy and creative capacity. Some people naturally support your best thinking, while others tend to create confusion, conflict, or energy depletion. Gradually increase time spent with people who enhance your natural intelligence while reducing exposure to relationships that consistently diminish your thinking clarity. Develop practices and rituals that help you consistently access the mental state where your intelligence functions optimally. This might include specific preparation routines, transition practices between activities, or regular reflection and planning sessions that maintain clarity about priorities and direction. As these supportive systems become established, you'll notice that achievement thinking stops feeling like something you have to work to maintain and starts feeling like your natural way of operating. The structures support clear thinking and effective action automatically, allowing your intelligence to express itself consistently at high levels. Integration mastery. As these foundations become established, something remarkable happens. Thinking like a high achiever stops feeling like a special skill to be developed and starts feeling like your natural way of operating when conditions support your best thinking. Effortless performance. True mastery of achievement thinking is characterized by high-level performance that feels natural and sustainable rather than forced or exhausting. You're not using willpower to maintain ambitious thinking or motivation techniques to sustain effective action. Instead, you've created conditions where excellence emerges naturally from your optimized intelligence. This effortless quality emerges because you're working with your natural mental patterns rather than against them. When your thinking style, work environment, and goals align with your authentic nature, high performance becomes as natural as a skilled musician playing a familiar piece. The complexity and sophistication are still there, but the execution feels flowing and intuitive. People often notice that you seem to handle challenges and opportunities with greater ease and effectiveness, not because you're working harder, but because you're working more intelligently. Your thinking appears clearer, your decisions more strategic, and your actions more consistently effective because you've learned to optimize your natural capabilities rather than forcing artificial approaches. This effortless performance typically includes enhanced creativity, faster problem-solving, better strategic thinking, and more consistent follow-through on important initiatives. These improvements don't feel like you're becoming someone different. They feel like you're finally expressing your authentic capabilities without the interference that was preventing optimal function. The sustainability of this effortless performance comes from the fact that it's based on alignment with your natural intelligence rather than on depleting resources like willpower or motivation. You can maintain high levels of thinking and performance because you're not fighting against your authentic nature to achieve them. Natural leadership. As your achievement thinking becomes integrated and effortless, you often discover that your enhanced clarity and effectiveness naturally positions you for leadership opportunities and increased influence. This leadership emerges organically from your improved capability rather than from trying to become more influential or important. Your clear thinking and strategic approach naturally inspire confidence in others who recognize the quality of your insights and decision-making. People begin seeking your perspective on important issues because they notice that your thinking is unusually clear and helpful. This influence develops naturally rather than through forced networking or self-promotion. The leadership that emerges from authentic achievement thinking tends to be more sustainable and effective than leadership based on charisma or political positioning, because it's grounded in genuine capability and clear thinking. People follow your lead because your approaches work and your insights prove valuable, not because you're trying to convince them of your importance. This natural leadership often extends beyond formal roles into informal influence in any group or organization where you participate. Your optimized thinking naturally contributes to better outcomes, which creates respect and influence that support even greater achievement opportunities. The beautiful aspect of this natural leadership is that it feels aligned and energizing, rather than burdensome or artificial. You're not trying to be influential, you're simply thinking clearly and acting effectively, which naturally draws opportunities for greater responsibility and impact. Continuous innovation. Integrated achievement thinking naturally supports ongoing innovation and adaptation rather than rigid adherence to predetermined approaches. When your intelligence is functioning optimally, you naturally notice opportunities for improvement and develop creative solutions to emerging challenges. This continuous innovation happens because clear thinking naturally includes awareness of changing circumstances, new possibilities, and areas where current approaches could be enhanced. You're not locked into fixed strategies but remain responsive to new information and opportunities while maintaining consistency in your core approach. Your enhanced thinking capacity also allows you to see connections and possibilities that weren't apparent when your intelligence was operating under suboptimal conditions. This broader perspective frequently leads to innovative approaches that others miss because they're thinking more narrowly or reactively. The innovation that emerges from optimized thinking tends to be practical and effective rather than merely novel, because it's based on clear understanding of underlying principles. You develop solutions that actually work because your thinking process includes realistic assessment of implementation challenges and likely outcomes. This continuous innovation keeps your achievement trajectory dynamic and responsive rather than mechanical, which maintains engagement and prevents the staleness that can develop from repetitive approaches to success. Meaningful impact. Perhaps the most fulfilling aspect of mastering achievement thinking is discovering that your enhanced capabilities naturally want to create meaningful impact beyond personal success. When you're thinking clearly and performing effectively, you often feel drawn to challenges and opportunities that serve purposes larger than individual achievement. This meaningful impact emerges organically from the satisfaction of using your intelligence fully and the natural human desire to contribute to something worthwhile. As your thinking becomes more strategic and your actions more effective, you begin to see opportunities for contribution that weren't visible when you were struggling with unclear thinking or ineffective action. The impact you create tends to feel aligned and sustainable because it emerges from your natural capabilities rather than from forced effort or artificial ambition. You're not trying to be important or significant, you're simply applying your optimized intelligence to challenges that matter, which naturally creates valuable outcomes. This meaningful impact often accelerates your achievement development because working on purposes that genuinely matter provides sustained motivation and energy that purely personal goals cannot match. The significance of your contribution supports continued excellence in thinking and performance. Legacy creation. As achievement thinking becomes fully integrated, many people discover that their approach to success naturally evolves from personal accomplishment to legacy creation. This isn't about ego or immortality, it's about the natural desire to use your developed capabilities in ways that continue creating value beyond your direct involvement. This legacy creation often manifests through mentoring others, developing systems and approaches that outlast your personal participation, or contributing to causes and organizations that align with your values and utilize your optimized capabilities. The legacy that emerges from authentic achievement thinking tends to be practical and beneficial rather than self-aggrandizing, because it's based on genuine capability and clear thinking rather than on ego needs or external validation requirements. Creating meaningful legacy becomes a natural expression of your developed intelligence rather than a separate goal to pursue. You find yourself naturally thinking about sustainable impact and long-term value creation because your optimized thinking includes broader time horizons and deeper consideration of consequences. Wisdom integration. The ultimate expression of mastered achievement thinking is the integration of high performance with deep wisdom about what success actually means and how it relates to genuine fulfillment and contribution. This wisdom prevents the emptiness that can accompany achievement that's disconnected from authentic values and meaningful purposes. This integrated wisdom includes understanding the difference between achievement that enhances your humanity and achievement that diminishes it, between success that serves genuine growth and success that merely satisfies ego needs. Your optimized thinking naturally includes these broader considerations rather than focusing solely on measurable outcomes. The wisdom that emerges from authentic achievement thinking also includes realistic understanding of the role that success plays in a well-lived life. You neither overvalue achievement as the source of all fulfillment, nor undervalue it as meaningless competition. Instead, you understand achievement as one important aspect of expressing your human potential fully. This wisdom integration makes your achievement thinking more sustainable and satisfying because it's connected to deeper understanding of human flourishing rather than to superficial ideas about success and failure. Your high performance serves authentic development rather than replacing it. Living excellence. When achievement thinking becomes fully integrated, you discover that excellence becomes a natural way of being rather than something you do in specific areas or during particular projects. The clear thinking, strategic action, and sustained focus that characterize high achievement become natural expressions of your optimized intelligence in all areas of life. This living excellence doesn't mean perfectionism or constant peak performance. It means bringing your natural intelligence and authentic capabilities to whatever you're doing rather than operating from confusion, reactivity, or suboptimal conditions. Excellence becomes about expressing your genuine nature fully rather than meeting external standards. The sustainability of living excellence comes from the fact that it's based on alignment with your authentic nature, rather than on forced efforts or artificial standards. You're not trying to be excellent according to someone else's definition. You're expressing your natural capabilities under optimal conditions, which naturally produces excellent outcomes. This is how thinking like a high achiever ultimately transforms from a goal to pursue into a natural way of being. You're not trying to adopt foreign thinking patterns or force yourself to become someone different. You're creating conditions where your natural intelligence can express itself clearly and consistently, which naturally produces the thinking patterns and performance levels that characterize authentic high achievement. When you understand this principle, developing achievement thinking becomes as natural as any other form of optimal human functioning. You're not acquiring new capabilities, you're removing obstacles that prevent your existing intelligence from operating at its highest level. The result is sustained high performance that feels like natural self-expression rather than forced effort, which makes excellence sustainable and deeply fulfilling rather than exhausting and artificial. This is the true secret of thinking like a high achiever. It's not about becoming someone different, but about becoming more fully yourself under conditions that support your natural intelligence. When you create these conditions consistently, achievement thinking becomes your natural way of operating rather than something you have to force or maintain through effort. And this natural excellence becomes the foundation for contributions and achievements that feel authentic, sustainable, and deeply satisfying rather than empty or artificially imposed.